Today we're going to start working on recording our work with the algebra tiles on paper so that we can move away from using the tiles and just show our work on paper. So to do that, I'm going to show you what we would be doing with the algebra tiles, either on the iPad or on the Chromebook. And then what you are going to do is you're going to record the work as I recorded on paper. So you should have a sheet that has 8 boxes in it, and we're going to start with number 1. So find the box with number 1 in it. And we're going to start with this equation. So I want you to write this down. X minus 3 equals 6. Now, while you're writing that down, I'm going to build the equation. So we have an x, and again, when it says minus 3, that is the same as adding a negative 3. And so I'm going to add 3 negative tiles to side A, or the left side of that equation. Now on the right side, I have 6 positives. So I'm going to drag over 6 positives. So that's our equation. Well, what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about the next step, and then we're going to record our steps on paper. So with the algebra tiles, the first thing I'm going to look for is any 0 pairs on side A, and I don't see any. And now I'm going to look at side B and see if there are any 0 pairs there, and there aren't. So the next thing I want to do is I want to focus on getting all of my x's on one side of the equal sign and my unit tiles on the other. Well, right now this is pretty easy because I see one x on the left side of the equal sign. So what I want to do is get rid of the 3 negatives that are hanging out with that x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3 positives to the left side, and I have to add 3 positives to the right side. Now what you're going to do is we're going to record that underneath what you wrote down where it says x plus negative 3 equals 6. What we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to draw a line. We call this the train track method, because we're going to draw something that looks kind of like train tracks. The train tracks are just a way to divide our work into side A and side B. It's very similar to the equal sign on the equation mat. And also if you think about the teeter-totter or the seesaw, it's the middle of the teeter-totter, the middle of the seesaw. So now what I just did is I added 3 positives to the left side. So what you're going to do is you're going to write down what you did. So I'm going to write plus 3 on the left side. And then on the right side, I'm also going to add 3, because that's what I did. I added 3 positive tiles to each side. Now what I have to do is we're going to draw a line. So make sure that your work looks like this. And again, if you need to pause at any point, you can pause, and then just hit play when you're ready to start again. And now what we need to do is we need our 0 pairs. And so what happens here is I have my 3 positives and 3 negatives, so those go away. Well, it's the same thing when you're showing your work on paper. My 3 negatives and my 3 positives, they're going to zero each other out, so we have nothing. What I still do have on the left side is an x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down that I have an x on the left side, and then I'm going to make my little track, so the equals. And then on the right side now, I'm going to put together the tiles that I have. I have 6 tiles plus 3 tiles, and so x equals 9. And now we have to think, have we solved for x? Do we know the value of 1x? And we have x equals 1x equals 9. And so now we're going to plug that back into the equation. Now the equation said x minus 3 equals 6. So what I'm going to do is, instead of the x, I'm going to write 9 minus 3 equals 6. Well, 9 minus 3 does give me 6. So I have 6 on both sides, and 6 equals 6. So I know that my answer is correct. X equals 9. So now we're going to practice this again. So you can see now that we're going to move away from the tiles, but we're going to think about the tiles as we show our work on paper. So go to the box that says number 2. And our second equation is going to look like this. So in box number 2, you're going to write this down. 2x plus 3 equals 3x plus 5. And what I'm going to do while you write that down is I'm going to build this equation. So I have 2x plus 3 on the left side. On the right side, I have 3x's plus 5. So I can get rid of some of these and make sure that I have 5. Okay. So there's my equation. Again, the first thing I'm going to look for are zero pairs. So I look at side A, and I don't see any zero pairs. I look at side B, no zero pairs. So the next thing I want to do is I can either get rid of some 1s or I can get rid of some x's. So what I want to do is I notice there are 2 x's on the left side and 3 x's on the right side. So I think the most that I want to get rid of is 2 x's. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 negative x tiles to each side. Now, to show that on paper, there we go. What I'm going to do, draw my tracks, because now what I've done again is I've divided my work into side A and side B. And I can see that I did want to get rid of those 2 x's on each side, so what I'm going to do is add 2 negative x's to each side. Now, I'm going to get rid of those x's, or take care of my zero pairs. And what I just did, if you look at your work, 2 x's and 2 negative x's, that they're going to zero each other out. So what I have left on the left side is 3 positives equals, well, now on the right side, notice I had 3 x's and I had 2 negative x's. So when I put those together using zero pairs, what I'm left with is just 1 x, and I still have plus 5 tiles on the right. Now, the next thing I want to do then is I want to get x all by itself. Well, even if you look at your equation, you can see that my x is on the right side, but I have the plus 5 there. I don't want the plus 5 there, so to get rid of the 5 positives, I'm going to add 5 negatives to each side. So again, your work that you're going to show is I'm going to write that. I'm going to put 5 negatives on the right, and I'm going to put 5 negatives on the left. So I'm going to show you what that looks like with the tiles. I'm going to add 5 negatives on each side. And now I can take care of my zero pairs. Well, on the left side, if I put 3 positives together with 5 negatives, I'm going to get 2 negatives left over. And I can show you how that works right here. I take those zero pairs, what I'm left with is 2 negatives. On the right side, if you just look at your work, I still have that 1x there. You can call it 1x or just x. But now what happened is I had those 5 positives and those 5 negatives. They zeroed each other out. They're gone. And so on the mat, that looks like this. Oops. Should be blue. Try it again. And so now what happens is that I know I have -2 on the left, I have 1x on the right. So what that means is that -2 equals x. Now we can check our work by plugging it in. Going back to the original equation, 2x plus 3 equals 3x plus 5. So this means 2 times -2 plus 3 on the left side. On the right side, I'm going to do 3 times -2 plus 5. Well, on the left side, I get -4 plus 3, which is -1. On the right side, I get -6 plus 5, which is -1. So if both sides balance out, then I know I got the right answer. So I'm going to stop this now, and then you're going to go on to problem number 3 on the next video, in the next slide.